What's up, everybody? How are y'all doing tonight? So, I'm back with part four of Healing from Divorce. If you have been tuning in weekly, the first week I covered the steps of healing and I talked about going through acceptance, grief, forgiveness, and renewal. And then the next week, I had a checklist for you of some things that you can do when you're blindsided by divorce, like how to get started, including like what steps to take legally, those types of things. And then last week, I talked about what to do if there's no closure. Because even though you're at the point where divorce is impending, that doesn't mean that, everything is like wrapped up with a bow. And so if there's no closure, it can be hard to move to the next step, which is acceptance. It can be hard to progress. And so we talked about those things last week. And so today I want to talk about managing your emotions. And so specifically, I want to talk about anger, rage, revenge, those types of things that can come up when you are going through a divorce. It's a stressful time, and so there are a lot of different emotions that you might experience during this time. And so the first thing to know is that it is okay. You are a human being and you're trying to navigate something that you didn't expect to happen and you don't want it to be happening, but you're just trying to figure out, like how to get through. And so it's tricky when you are getting a divorce. And one of the major emotions that people go through is shame. And I'm not going to say it's specifically, like mostly for women. It can be women or men, but I do know that for women, the reason that we experience a lot of shame when going through a divorce is just because of, societal pressures and the way that society sees marriages. And, sometimes it is society and sometimes it's the pressure that we put on ourselves as well because, you know, a lot of the times we've been taught that that's what you should do. You grow up, you get married, you have a family, all those things. And even if you don't have a family, most people encourage you, to find a mate. And then a lot of people don't want to be lonely. And so there's a method to the madness. You're trying to get your life together and you're trying to find somebody to share it with. And then all of a sudden that comes crashing down. But I want to encourage you to work through the emotions. Um, Grief is a really big part too, and it is like the umbrella for a lot of these other emotions because when you're going through the phases of grief, anger will come up, denial will come up. But I wanna focus on shame and anger and revenge tonight because I think grief needs its own time slot, and I don't think I can cover everything. And I'm not going to go in detail tonight, but what I want to do is just to encourage you if you are experiencing any of these emotions as you're going through your divorce, just to encourage you to one, allow yourself to process it, and two, to try to find some ways to work through it because some of these emotions as you're expressing them while you're also trying to navigate through this new territory, some of them can cause you, not to get things done, not to feel your best. Sometimes you want to give up, or sometimes, like I said, you become really angry. And so it's important for us to understand how can we protect ourselves and manage the emotions while still healing. And so when we talk about let's talk about shame first. When we talk about the shame that comes from having a failed marriage, sometimes for people it can be like a religious thing, because you feel like you've broken a covenant, and a lot of people will start talking about it and they'll be like, well, you're not supposed to do this because you made this covenant with God. But I encourage you to shut those people out and to only listen to the folks that you can trust and that you feel like will give you an objective way of viewing things. And so, if you want, I'm not saying you can't look at the religious part of it or the biblical part of marriage. What I'm saying is you don't want someone to have to tell you something that makes you stay stuck or makes you remain in a place that is unhealthy for you or makes you remain in a place where, you're not being treated well or you can't treat each other well. And so while everybody knows what to tell you when it's not them, it's different when it's you going through the divorce. And so, yes, I encourage you to pray about it and take it to God, but God is ultimately going to work it out how He's going to work it out. And so I think that if you can shut off the noise from people that aren't beneficial to you, and you can really surround yourself with trusted friends, and I talked about this on one of the previous lives, a tight circle that can support you, then I think that you will receive better advice. But just know this: it might be shameful to think about, okay, I had a failed marriage and now I'm looking at divorce, but it is also very shameful to be stuck in a relationship, in a marriage with someone that does not want to be there with you, does not know how to act, does not know how to treat you, or they have shown you, that they don't, and they are expressing to you that they wish to go. And so when you keep yourself in that kind of situation, you open yourself up to more harm than if you um, walk away, if you let the other person go and you walk away. And so that's basically what I want to say about shame. Um, and if you have questions or comments, we can have a dialogue about it. Just type it in the chat and we'll talk about it. But okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is anger. So anger does occur sometimes during the grieving process, but you can be angry at any time, because sometimes you think about the fact that you have given another person your all. You have given them your word. You have taking those vows. And basically they are saying, I'm giving up on us. I want out, or this is what I need to do. And so I'm not saying that they can't feel differently. Yes, they have a right to be happy. And if they don't feel like they're happy in the marriage, yes, they have a right to leave it. However, sometimes people don't behave well. Sometimes people behave badly. Sometimes they don't communicate well. And so any number of these things can make you feel angry. And there's nothing wrong with feeling angry. But you do have to be careful with the anger, because a lot of times things do happen when you're angry. You might act a certain way. And I also talked about this in another live. You have to be careful how you behave, because sometimes if you have a person, your soon to be ex-spouse is vindictive, or they're not, it's not going to be an amicable divorce and the things are not going well. They can literally gaslight you and like goat you into doing some things that you shouldn't be doing or you shouldn't be saying. And so it's very important to watch the anger and to try your best to not respond when you're angry, to go cool off, to take your time to think about what you need to say and what you need to do. Because if you act on anger, things can go very badly. I mean, it can be a dangerous situation, if I'm just being honest. And so you never know how far somebody can push you until you're in that moment. And I mean, if you're a person that keeps control of yourself pretty well, then you know yourself well. But sometimes when it's matters of the heart, and it's, I have put my time, my sweat, my tears into this marriage, and it's sort of like, and now you want to do it this way, or now you want to act this way, you can be surprised at the feelings that will occur. And it's not just that what I know for myself, is things that I've seen and heard from other people. And so anger is an emotion that you do get to express. But I would encourage, like exercise is a good way to manage anger, because you don't want to lock it inside. That's not good for you, but you don't want to lash out in a way that is not becoming of you, or in a way that you might regret later. And so the anger must be checked. Um, Therapy is really good for anger, really for all of the emotions. If you can get a therapist that can help talk you through it and help advise you on steps to take. I'm not a professional, and so I say that all the time, but I do have my own therapist, and I feel like therapy has been a game changer for me. So when you don't know what to do, or you don't know how to manage it, or you're having certain feelings, you can go to your therapist or to your counselor and say, hey, this is what's going on with me, and this divorce is so difficult that I'm just kind of like out of sorts. I usually behave this way, but these are the thoughts that are coming to me. This is how I'm feeling. It is really good to share that with a professional, because they have tools and they have training and experience that will allow them to advise you in the steps you can take to manage yourself better. So therapy is always a good way to deal with really any of the emotions, if you can do that. And if you don't have a therapist or you don't trust a therapist, um, like I said before with shame, a trusted friend, someone that you know is going to be objective and is not going to take a side, is not going to say something off the wall. All right. And so the next thing that comes up a lot of times, the next emotion, if you want to call it that, is revenge. Y'all, sometimes it's just hard out here. It is hard when you think you have it all together, you think everything is good, and then it all comes crashing down. And I'm not just talking about in cases where like your spouse has been unfaithful and they cheated on you, or they are having a full-blown affair or multiple affairs, whatever is happening. Sometimes just the amount of pain that you're going through can make you um have like a it's almost like, oh, I know how I'll get through this. I'll distract myself. So it's like ideas of distraction that can really be revenge, like underlying. And so what I mean by that is, like, sometimes just because you're going through the divorce or you're separated, now you realize that you're a free individual, right? You might go and get that girlfriend, get that boyfriend, and that might not be the best thing to do when you are also trying to heal, when you're also trying to figure out steps for like finances and what things you need to do legally. But at the same time, you have this other person, and sure, they might boost your ego, or they might help they may really even be helpful, or almost even like someone you can talk to or rely on. But it is the entanglement, if we will, of that relationship, and then as you're leaving your marriage, that can cause so much drama. And again, it can also spark a dangerous situation, because some people do have a jealous spouse, and you don't know what's going to happen. And then you might not know the new person as well, so you just need to be very careful, and not try to come up a distraction that will keep you from focusing on the pain, but also it's kind of like a revenge type of thing. And another way that revenge surfaces is they're like, well, I'll show you, I'm going to do this glow up, and then you're going to wish that you had stayed with me, or you hadn't asked for this divorce. That happens a lot. And there's nothing wrong with having motivation. Hey, if you are motivated to better yourself, or to do whatever it is you want to do with yourself and become who you want to become now that you are, divorced, that's fine. But I would encourage you to try to be motivated from within yourself, because sometimes you don't have an audience. And even if you think that the person that you were married to is surely never going to forget you, or they're not going to be able to move on, people can surprise you in that way too. Sometimes they do move on quickly, and they don't care. And so then you don't have the motivation that you need, because you don't have an audience. And so I'm not trying to beat up on anybody by saying this, just bringing real talk to you tonight, and just to say, be motivated for yourself. So whatever it is that you do, try to do it in a sense of, I'm doing it for me, and I want to be better, because I now have more time, or I now have the ability to focus on me, whereas before you may have lost yourself a little bit in the marriage, and you may not have been able to do what you wanted to, because you were really concerned about the other person and their feelings and trying to keep things together. Well, now maybe you have more time to work on you. So try to understand that in a marriage, and even as you're going through divorce, that other person cannot validate you. You are valid all by yourself, and you are enough. And so just because they're leaving doesn't mean that your value is less, and so now you have to glow up. But if you want to do something to work on yourself, if you want to do something because you want to be better, that is a better approach to doing it. And that is an approach that can actually last, because it's something that makes you feel good. And the other reason not to give in to revenge, and not to let the other person kind of make you feel like, well, you need to make these changes. The other reason is because you don't want to be giving them control over your emotions, whatever they are. You don't want to be like, well, whatever they're doing, I have to now have a reaction to that. And so when you are trying to manage your emotions, whether it's shame, whether it's anger, or it's revenge, think about it in terms of keeping control of yourself. You don't want the other person's actions to cause you to have a reaction, because then they're basically in control. And so that is a way that you can think about it and see if it helps you to manage. But again, I do encourage a tight circle of friends, trusted friends or family, not someone that's going to take sides or someone that's going to tell you, what God says you need to do. Because while they may be coming from a good place, they may not understand all the details of your marriage, and so they really don't get to say that to you in that way. And so, tight circle. Second is a therapist. I highly recommend therapist or counselor that you can talk to, because they're professional and they can provide you with tips and activities and just different perspectives for how you can work through your emotions. And then I would also encourage you to pick up activities. Like I said, I picked up adult coloring. You might want to walk more, exercise, skating. I mean, I don't know what it is, a hobby like crocheting. There are all kinds of things that you can do that, maybe you were interested in them once, and now this is an opportunity to dive into them, because it will help your mind to be able to be distracted in a good way and not a negative way. Whereas the shame can be negative for you, because you might not do some things, and you might internalize it. The anger can be difficult for you because you might lash out in the wrong way or at the wrong time. And revenge can be detrimental to you, because you may invite something or someone in to your heart that you're not ready for, and you aren't healing. And so those are my tips. That's what I have for you tonight. And just keep in mind, your emotions are going to be like a roller coaster. Some days you're going to feel really happy and independent that you're taking care of yourself, or at least I hope you get to those days. Some days you're going to maybe feel more peaceful, but then there'll be days that you just get knocked all the way down, and it hurts because the pain is real. And in those times, just know that this too shall pass. Give yourself the time and the space to manage it, to allow it. If you have to crash out by yourself. Like, do it where you can be private, where you can say whatever you want to, and it doesn't really affect anybody, and nobody is trying to use it against you. If you need to cry, cry. And so I just encourage you just to understand that it is like this. It is up and down. But I believe the further you move out from it and the more closure you give to yourself, you will be able to navigate these emotions and to continue your healing journey. And it is absolutely worth it. And so that's what I want to leave you with tonight. I think I am going to talk about grief, because, like I said, it's a separate. It's big because of all the phases, and so I'll probably do a live just on grief by itself. But that's what I have for you tonight. Continue taking care of yourself. I'm here if you have questions, or if you need help. You can always schedule a free consultation with me, where I can see if I can help you, where like with one-on-one coaching, but just here to listen as well. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope to see you next week.